Hello. Welcome to my live Stand Out and Grow podcast. Thank you for joining me today. If you are joining me live, please make sure you drop a note in the comments. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you're joining me via rebroadcast or repurpose, however you want to say it, whatever word you want to use, then just put the R word and let me know where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions for me or my special guests, then also leave those in the comments, even after if you're on the rebroadcast, even after the show. So please make sure you leave those questions in the comments. I would love to come back and circle around and hear any of your questions or comments. Okay, so I have a very special guest today. I actually met Merril via LinkedIn. He is a fantastic person. I was very impressed by our conversation. And as I got to know him a little better, I began to learn about overcoming adversity. And Merril has a great story to tell. He's written a couple of books. And a little bit about him is he will help us uncover the power of, find a way mentally to overcome adversity and achieve success, which I love. That's a great kind of a synopsis of what he's going to bring to the table. He is a former, sorry, NFL player and a current ESPN an analyst. How exciting. I feel so privileged to be in his presence. But he is also known for his find a way philosophy, which helped him overcome obstacles and throughout his life, including cancer, open heart surgery, and a family tragedy. So I am so excited to bring Merril. Merril, you're going to have to tell me if I'm butchering your name. How are you?
Kat, I'm great. It's actually
Awesome.
Merril. You try to think
That's
of like
what I thought.
you remember
Okay.
you remember the commercial Merrill Lynch, bullish on
Yeah.
America, breed apart.
Thank you.
There it is.
That's a great way to put it right there. Awesome. Okay. So NFL player, ESPN analyst, which is awesome. These are great titles to have. But I think the best one is what you're doing as a motivational speaker and as an author. And if you could give everybody who is tuning in a little background about you and, what brought you to where you're at today.
Well, Kat, I guess I could. It all stems from actually sitting in a chemotherapy chair. That's where everything started, from me writing a book to eventually speaking. Not in a. Let me tell you what. If you backed up way before that in high school or college, and at some point in everybody's life, they're always asked, "What are you going to do? What are you going to be?" This would not be one thing that I would say I was going to do. Speaking, no.
Yep.
Writing a book, never. But I go back to sitting in a chemotherapy chair. A friend of mine had hired a film crew to document one of my treatments, because my treatments were about 14 hours long. They're a brutal treatment. But after treatment, if my staff worked at a basketball game afterward, I'd go play basketball, and then would do what I would do every other morning before I got my kids ready for their day. I'd work out. And he's like, man, he goes, how do you do what? And he's like, well, I got to document that. But I will tell you this. When we were doing the document that day, and we had a film, we had two chairs, we were just going back and forth. I was sharing things with him, and one of those was how Find a Way had really, those words had changed the course of my mindset and my thought process and my journey as a kid. I had a wall of cork my dad built me in my bedroom that I used to put my goals on all the time.
Yep.
And those words, find a way, have always inspired action. And the best way to sum things up, though, is, I've found great success when I play. I learned a lot about success when I played in the National Football League. I learned a lot about success in 21 years in at ESPN. And I've learned a lot about success in the platform that I speak on.
Yep.
But I've also learned a lot about success after going into cardiac arrest, being in intensive care, having to learn how to read again, and going through major depression. And I've learned a lot about success sitting in a chemotherapy chair. And I've learned a lot about success going through an open heart surgery. And from that perspective, is what I speak on, and being able to share that with people. But the goal is to get people to realize of their amazing strengths and the great tool that we all have, if just used right and used for you versus against you, which is your mind. There's really nothing that is not possible. And that's why I try to leave with people is when I go on a stage at the end, I get back to what I'm only doing this message. The reason I do it, because I know it's possible for people. And because I found so much hope in people, so many people have inspired me, so many people have challenged me, and to be able to share a few of those stories and experiences with those people, and getting people to understand their strengths, they're in charge, what their abilities are, is really what really inspires me the most about being able to have that opportunity to stand on a stage.
Yeah. And I think that's fantastic. And, um, it's unfortunate that of the things that, you had to endure, but I think probably the best thing is in the messaging is that you have learned a way to overcome adversity, right? And you're now sharing those stories with people so that they also can learn to overcome adversity. And at the end of the day, lots of people have adversity. I think the biggest problem, especially with social media, is, we all put our best out there. Always, we put our best. And I had this
Right.
conversation with someone else the other day, and we don't understand and know that there are underlying problems, behind all of that. And people just put the best out there so that that's what they want the world to see, you know. And
Yeah. Well,
sometimes, go ahead.
go ahead. Well, Kat, and I think that's important, to always, find success in things. But I mean, most of my successes, or at least half of them, have been in the face of what would be considered tragedy.
Right.
I mentioned, a lot of great inspiration came from sitting in a chemotherapy chair.
Yep.
Um, Now, listen, I through that battle. I mean, that was, I called it. That's there's the people who have had these type of diagnosis. They will always remember that day,
Yep.
and almost all of them will refer to that's not the only day that's bad. Okay, I call it the dark days of diagnosis. It was just one after another after another. That day sitting in the chemotherapy chair, having that film crew was not a good day for me. It was one of
Yeah.
my darkest days. But what I try to get help people with is, in every situation or circumstance that comes to us, we can find success in that journey. There might be value in that
Yep.
journey and that experience. And had I not had cancer, and this is an honest truth, I am not doing this podcast with you right now because I'm not alive anymore. And that's because the PET CAT scans that I had to do after my treatment for several years, for 5 years afterwards, they discovered a defect in my aorta that would have never been discovered unless you did a PET CAT.
Yep.
And the only way you do PET CATs is when you know you have something severely wrong or they're trying to identify things like cancer. Well, I mean, like a stress test would never have done that
Yep.
because you'd
Yep.
have to do an echocardio to really look at the heart. And usually you have to have some type of symptom or issue that you're dealing with or history to do that, which I had none of that. And my aorta defect was actually self-inflicted. And they find a lot in power lifters. They find it a lot in athletes. And that is just a self-inflicted thing where you've just pushed yourself too much,
Gotcha.
and I'd stress that aorta so much based on how I trained that it had enlarged. But
Yep.
had I not had cancer, I wouldn't have. So, as brutal as it was, I don't ever want to do it again. I don't wish it on anybody. Without it, I'm probably not here. Well, I'm
Yep.
not here because I asked my open heart surgeon
Yep.
after I had surgery on Monday. He came in on Friday when I was on Thursday night, excuse me, because I was leaving Friday morning, and I just happened to ask him, well, hey, like when would I have probably kind of gotten a symptom or had something notify me that I got a problem? He said the only time you'd have found out, only time we would have figured you out is in your autopsy. You ain't having no
Wow.
symptom.
Wow. Wow.
He said it had ruptured and it had been over.
Yep.
I was like,
Yep.
oh my gosh, and that's when really the clarity of it all, and the
Yep.
experience of it all. I've garnered a lot of success in those difficult times too. And it's I always ask people this when I speak. The key to all of this is: do you control your mind, or does your mind control you? And that's a challenge that, like, listen, the brain is the most powerful tool on this planet. Okay, I don't care what supercomputer that you have, you can times it by 10, and this right here
Oh yeah.
between our two ears, I have, everybody who's watching this has, can consume more information and more data than that. And then the ability to make it work for you, it's really a simple tool. It's a simple exercise. Um, it's it's the ability to feed yourself positive things on a consistent daily basis.
Yep.
Now, that could be done simply by putting. I still have a goal board. It sits over there. I've had a goal board since I was 12 years old.
Okay.
But it's a great way to keep yourself in check and in charge of where you're going. Like, listen, all these phones everybody's doing this on right now. Okay, this is one advantage to a phone.
Yep.
Is you have a screensaver. You can write something on that screensaver, because you're going to see that how many times a day. Every time you hit your phone, you write down something that you're trying to do, trying to be, or maybe dealing with, or trying to change, and write it in a powerful manner that works for you. You do that, you see that on a consistent basis, you feed your mind those type of thoughts. That's what really transforms your powers. It's that so many times we let the negatives overcome us and consume us more than the positive. We're in charge of that. We're in
Yep.
charge of how we want to feed ourselves, what we want to put ourselves around, what environment we want ourselves around, what people you want yourself around. And so you're in charge of that. That's part of my message too. The people, I want them to realize they're in charge. You're responsible for all this. That's the power in all of it. The things that you put yourself around, what you look at every day, what you feed yourself every day. And when we do that, we train the brain. So you have the choice to train your brain any way you want. You can train it to go negative, or you can train it to go positive. And that's a powerful thing. But you're in charge of that. And when you exercise those things, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, and you're not going to start putting something up on a wall and you look at it every morning and every day for 2 days and you change. That's not the case. But over time, you do that. It becomes a powerful tool, and then it's applied to anything and everything. It doesn't just go to, a goal. You can go to actually everything in your life, and it transforms that. And just to get people to recognize those strengths and powers that they possess, and that they have the ability to it. And when they recognize that too, when I get done speaking, if I have somebody come up, which happens most of the time when I
Yep.
talk to people, they start telling me about them. If I hear about them, then I have done my job. If I hear about me, I've done a bad job. It's not
Right.
about me. It's really about them, and that they see the difference, and they see, oh, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I see that. That sparked me today. I am going to do that. I am going to try that. And I do see what you're saying. I did that one time, then I got away from it. And I did this for that. So when I see that's what it's about, is being able
Okay.
to get people to recognize those type of things.
Yeah. I think you kind of mentioned this to me, but I'm just going to reiterate it because I think it's valid to mention it here. Was the Find a Way book written as you were going through chemo or after the fact? Was that an occurrence that happened that perpetuated what you're doing now? Is that what
Yeah,
happened?
well, yeah. So I mentioned the chemotherapy chair. I was sitting in, my buddy Charlie the Valley was there grilling me. Well, he's the one who challenges me to write the book. And
Okay.
honestly, on that day, Kat, I turned to him. I said, "Listen, Charlie, I'll write your dumb book." And that's almost how I said it. If I
Yep.
survive, because I'll tell you, on that day, there was not writing a book was not a priority. Like,
Yep.
surviving was a priority, and I didn't know if I was going to survive. And it was not a good day. It was a tough day, and I really let it go. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't even think about it. And a year, almost to the day, he called me up. He said, "Remember that promise you made me?" And actually, I was like, then it hit me like, oh man, that book. I'm like, ah. Now listen, on my senior year, my final paper, I don't even remember what class it was. I spelled because wrong 36 times in this paper. I
Yep.
spelled it Becousc. Okay, how is somebody's going to write because wrong going to write a book? I was like, which should give everybody hope. You can write a book. If I can write a book, you can write a book.
Okay.
Um, but actually, so I accepted the challenge. I did it, and that took me 5 years. That wasn't
Okay.
easy. That
Okay.
was not that is not like, now I needed, like I said, I'm not a writer. I needed a ghostwriter. I needed somebody to help me. But finding somebody that understood my message, that it wasn't about football,
Yep.
but football's in it. I mean,
Yeah.
it can't help but being in it. It's been, a third of my life, or half my life to this point. Or, it's a big part of my life, but it's not about football. It just has football in it. And it was hard for me to find people that understood that. And once I found the guy that did, and he understood it so well. We were off and running, but it took a long time to find that guy.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. And, it takes a special relationship, especially when you have someone who's going to
Yes.
help you write something that intense, because you're right. You have to have that click. They have to understand, what you're going through. Okay. And then, so as for anybody that's tuning in, what's the premise of the book, Find a Way? I mean, I understand that you talk about the tragedy and stuff.
Well, it says find a way. I start off when I speak. Find a way has helped me live a dream and fight to live, and a lot of in between. Um, I find a way started and really was stimulating those words when I put the first goal up of as a kid to play in the National Football League. That's where it all started. Yes, it helped me when I fought through chemotherapy and open heart surgery and my being in an intensive care and trying, going through depression, having to learn to read again and working through that arduous process. But it's the in between stuff that I'm most excited about to this day. Like being a parent. Like I've always said, if you have kids, then being a parent will be the greatest leadership role that you ever are a part of. I don't care what Fortune 500 company you lead, it is not more important than being a parent. And Find a Way has been a parenting tool. So, like, I have used that for my kids. Like, my kids come to me in my office at any age. Even this,
Mhm.
my kids are 27 and 29 now. I mean, and I get called all the time from them. And okay, well, I'm 58. So, I mean, at 28 and 29, even though there's experience, 27 and 29, you have experiences, but there's things I've experienced that they haven't, that they have questions on. But
Yeah.
it was more, it started, it probably, I share this one story because it crystallized the importance of it for me. Now, it's a parenting tool. That's how it started, but it has evolved into a coaching tool. I've taken it to coaching every level of sports and kids from 8 to 18. Oh yeah, really 8 to 38. And even in the business world, it's a business tool, but it started as a parenting tool. And that tool is this: I judge my kids in the yardsticks of their years and not mine. What that has given me at all times is patience and perspective. And people that have had kids, this will be understandable, and relatable. My son was 5 years old. He comes home. He wants to get all these socks his buddies have. So we go to Dick's. We buy 3 pair, $3.99 each. We come home. He's in the backyard. He's playing with his friends. I walk through the kitchen. They've been out there 15 minutes. I look out, and oh my gosh, he's got his shoes off, running around in socks I bought for $3.99. Okay. Well, what is my first thought? $3.99. My second thought, grass stains. My second thought,
Yep.
holes.
Yep.
Well, I can't get to the door fast enough
Right.
because now I grabbed that doorknob. Yardsticks of his years, not mine. Patience and perspective come over me.
Yep.
I opened the door to a 5-year-old and I said, "Hey, Bo, come here." Bo comes running over. And I said, "Son, why would you be running around in socks that I just bought for $3.99?" He said, "Well, Dad, I'm faster." And I'm like, well, I've been there. I was a kid too. You take your shoes off, you run around, you think you're faster. That's not true. And so I said, well, actually, that's really not true. I go, just take your sock off. Let me show you something. So I flip it around and I show him
Yep.
grass stains, no holes because I caught him quick enough. I said, actually, you're slower because when your shoes come off, your socks have no traction and you slide on the grass. But if you want to be faster when you take your shoes off, just take those socks off I bought for $3.99. And then you will be faster, son. And he's like, really, Dad? He's like, yeah. Off Bo goes. I never see Bo again run around the socks I just bought for $3.99.
That is great.
Yards Yardsticks of his years, not mine. Age 35 versus 5. Now, is it normal for a 35-year-old to go out and run around without his shoes on? No.
Right.
A 5-year-old is very normal. It is
Yeah.
very common for them to do it. But it was just a reminder of me of just how powerful perspective and patience are. And even in the business world, I do a thing on leadership, and I use Find a Way in the business world. Patience and perspective are good from a business perspective. Shoot, if you've had a company, you've been in there for 30 years, and then you hire somebody, they've been here 30 days, and they make some mistakes or do something, well, they've been here 30 days, you've been here 30 years, because you might be like, wait a minute. But it gives you a different perspective on how
Yep.
you approach things and look at things, and just helps with bridging a gap. Because what ultimately both Find a Way and the Find a Way in the yards,
Yep.
I mean, judging people and kids in the yardsticks of their years or experience or knowledge
Yep.
versus your own, it bridges a gap of communication. Okay. And I use communicate because I've learned more by listening than I've ever learned by talking. So it's helped me, not to make an irrational decision, not say something stupid, not do something that is not going to help the situation. It's probably going to erode the situation. So it's really helpful for me in every aspect of parenting, coaching, and business.
Yeah, that's a great story. I love it because you really kind of turned the situation around. But you also helped your son kind of help solve the problem, right?
Yeah. Well, Kat, I mean, you make a good point. Okay, let me ask you this. Let's reverse it. Let's just say I never grab that doorknob and have that
Mhm.
perspective, and I don't have
Mhm.
yardsticks of his years, not mine,
Yep.
patient. And I come out that door and I start tearing into him.
Mhm.
$3.99. Are you kidding me? You know how hard I work for three? I mean, three. You're going to ruin your sock. And I go on this tirade, and I got to wash these things. And I mean,
Yep.
do you have any? Okay, first of all, at 5 years old, I don't really know if he's going to get $3.99. He doesn't really get that I'm working. So
Yeah.
now it may make me feel a lot better, but what have I accomplished? I've
Yeah.
accomplished nothing. I mean, what I don't want to do, and what I've never wanted to do, I don't want my kids to live in fear of me.
Yep.
I do want them to respect me. And I believe I had that great balance with them, but I want to love them and teach them in the
Yep.
process. And I don't think a tongue lashing of their understanding of a workforce and what $3.99 means in a budget is going to matter at age 5.
No.
I'd rather
No.
him understand, hey, listen, you're not faster. Just take the socks off, and then you will be faster.
I
Then we're
love
good.
that.
Everything's solved. Everything's
Yeah.
solved.
Yeah. Yeah. You won't see him running in socks anymore.
No, I never did again. I never did. He
Yeah.
thought he was that much smart. He's like, shoot, I don't
Right.
just take my shoes off. I take my socks off because my dad told me.
That's awesome. I love it. And again, this is just a great way of how you're just spinning it, right? So that it complements. And again, as you said, there's no bashing or anything like that, but the lesson is still learned. I mean, either way, the lesson is learned, and it's probably way better in the delivery this way. You talk about things when you're doing your speaking, and you talk about the biggest thing that I have picked up is it's all about the mindset, right? Is that the focus, that you're controlling the mindset, you're controlling how you act, how you react, and how the situation shouldn't control you. You should be controlling the situation, right? Is that the
Yeah.
focus
Well,
there?
I use Find a Way has inspired me to self-reflect. I think this is the two most important things that I have found for peaceful, successful people.
Hmm.
Integrity is number one. And I talk more about personal integrity, and that's the ability to be honest with yourself, to look in the reflection of the mirror.
Yep.
And at any point in your life, are you doing your part? Are you getting everything out of your God-given ability? And when I say do it in the reflection of the mirror, I mean that, because that's where I do it, and that's where I have
Yep.
done it.
Yep.
Sure, it could just be in the quiet of just you, but it's just got to be you, because you're the
Yep.
only one that knows the truth. Okay, you can't lie to yourself, because when you lie to yourself, you're lying to yourself.
Yep.
And sometimes it is, have I done my part? At the conclusion of something, and having peace with the efforts that you put into it. Having those type of things. But it all comes, and then the second one is that, well, is the self-evaluation aspect. So integrity, the ability to self-evaluate, because self-evaluating allows you to open up yourself and then grow. Go, you
Yep.
know what? I'm not getting everything out of my God-given ability. And I know I need to be doing A, B, then do A and B. Change that, create a
Yep.
different course of plan, create some action, and then take charge and go after that. There was in my journey when I was 12, those words found a way inspired me to just go on a search. And I was
Yep.
actually digging for things on Walter Payton, who was my favorite player, who was the all-time leading rusher in the National Football League at that time when I was a kid. But I accidentally stumble across a quote by Aristotle that ends up being the foundation of my journey. In fact, it is still one of the most powerful things that I think about and read to this day. I have it over on my wall. I emphasize it when I speak because it is so true and it is so powerful. But the quote is, "We are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not an act but a habit." Now, if you read that or you hear it, you are what you repeatedly do. Think about that. That is so true, good or bad. But that is 100% in control of every human being that's listening to you. You are what you repeatedly do. So whatever you choose to repeatedly do, then excellence isn't an act. Nobody stumbles out of bed one day and becomes excellent, but
Right.
you can be excellent. In fact, you can be anything that you want. And I tell people, in the evaluation of excellence, excellence does not mean that you're going to be the best in the history of your business or your profession or whatever craft you're in. Now, it might be, and good
Right.
for you, and that's great. But it goes back to that self-reflection aspect. Can you stand in front of a mirror at the end of the journey or at the end of a goal, at the end of your part, and you can say, "I did my part." Like if you can honestly say, "I did my part," I don't care where you end up, you're excellent. You've
Right.
done your part. There's more that there's no more. You can only control what you're in control of. If you honestly do everything possible within your control, then you're excellent. I don't care what the results are. I do
Right.
not care. Have peace with that.
Yep.
Be comfortable with that. And I just think that gives you peace. So I've done. Uh,
Oops. Oh, we're still here. Merrill had a little snafu, so I'll just keep talking as he hopefully comes back. Let's just remove this. So again, we're talking to Merrill. Oh, there he is. Give me. Okay,
sorry,
there you go.
sorry, I had a call come in. I'm
Yeah,
sorry
no
about
worries,
that.
no worries.
But going back to where we kind of were, it's
Yeah.
just if you at the end of the day, the worst, I think one of the most disturbing things to have to live with in life is regret.
Yep.
And regret in things that we had an opportunity to go after something and we're like, it's too hard.
Yep. Yep.
Or I really don't, I don't feel like doing it every day. Well, okay. Well, that's a choice.
Yes.
And that's a bad thing to have to live with, is like, I didn't give everything I had. I didn't do my part. And that's the really responsibility we all have. Do your part.
Yep.
Give everything you got. And then wherever those chips are, man, be peaceful with that. And
Yeah.
I just think you can find peace with that. It was more clear. It was the clearest example of that for me in my career. My career ended prematurely. I was playing for
Hmm.
the Chicago Bears. For years, I mean, almost for 5 years, I literally would go into all the darkest spaces when I had to go cover the Super Bowl because I would punish myself because I didn't win one. I mean, I would
Okay.
literally, it would be, when I'm telling you, a mental anguish for about a month. A week leading up to it, 2 weeks I had to go through it, and then the week after it. It was the hardest time for me. When, really, I got a job that, now people talk about the National Football League. There's 1,900 jobs. Okay.
Yep.
1,900. That is it. In television, there might be 100. So actually television and talking football, that might even be harder to accomplish than football. So I got a job that like millions covet and would like to be at. And I'm in pain because I got to go cover the Super Bowl because I'm beating myself up every day. I'm beating myself up for what I didn't accomplish. Walter Payton was my favorite player. I didn't come close to doing the things he did. I would just beat myself up. And I was getting ready to go to the Super Bowl in Atlanta. And I remember it was actually Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl there, and the Patriots beat the Rams. And I actually was looking in the mirror. I just got done brushing my teeth. I was getting ready to go to the airport. And I started to look at myself like, what, like, a deep soul search. Like, what should you have done more? What could have you done more of, to really accomplish those things that you did? And Kat, it was the first time I ever looked in the mirror under these circumstances with this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you did your part. You did your part. You did everything you could possibly. Teams win championships. Individuals don't win championships. You did your part. You were always prepared. You played hard, and you were uncommon every day. Every day. You never took a day. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm at peace with that. I'm telling you, like a smile came over me, and like the weight just jumped off my shoulder. I was like, oh my, I did my part. I'm not ashamed of that. I got the most out of my God-given ability. I went down to that Super Bowl, had the greatest Super Bowl ever. And then for the next 20 years, I enjoyed every second of it because I let it go because I'd done my part, and I finally had peace.
Oh, good. I mean, and one of the bullet points you sent me is you talk about taking action to attack your circumstances. So I think everybody can relate to that in regards to, I'll give you my example. Like, my dad has a second grade education. My mom has a high school education. We were never like encouraged to go to college. We were encouraged to get married and get out of the house, But as a child, I always wanted to go to college, right? I always wanted to go to college, and I always wanted to be better. I think I wanted it so bad that I made it happen, right? It's you have control. You can take action. And the more, it's like you said, mind over matter, the more that you can control it, the more that you will take action and the more you will facilitate, right? At the end of the day.
It's so true. And that's what, when I speak, I'm trying to find that. I'm assuming there's going to be people out there that are somewhat dormant. They've just let the negativity set in. Experience. Now, listen, circumstances. Everybody's got different circumstances. Okay, some people got dealt a better hand than others. Okay, at the end of the day, that's irrelevant.
Right.
Okay, you have the hands you're dealt. That's my point about, do you control your mind or does your mind control you? If you got a bad hand, okay, and I'm not saying I have a favorable hand. I mean, we had nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I should say that. I had a nice home. I had a place to live.
Yep.
But at age 12, my parents told me, okay, if you want anything now going forward financially, we'll give you room and board and lunch money. That's it. We don't buy school clothes. We don't do anything. We didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have a lot of money. I worked for a farmer. I worked on a ranch. Well, at that point, are you going to sit there and go, boy, I got a bad hand? If you're going to sit and focus on a bad hand all day, you cannot think about changing that hand.
Right.
Because your mind's over here. Your mind can't do two things. That's why it's powerful, that simple. If I'm going to feed myself negative things, if I'm only going to think about the bad hand I was dealt, I'm going nowhere.
Yep.
This is a toxic area to live in. You point fingers, you cast blame, you make excuses. You're not going anywhere there because you're stuck in this blender. Yep. However, you come over here and you take that integrity aspect, you self-evaluate, you look at yourself and go, yeah, I don't have a lot. Nobody's giving me anything. I'm going to have to dig myself out of here. Now, what am I going to do about it? Now, I'm not expecting you to know what to do. Shoot, that's happened to me many times. That's what Find a Way really, to me, has been so great about. It's usually used when you have no mission, you have no answer.
Right.
It's the unknown.
Yep.
That means do something. Okay. One of the things I've always found, I say I found hope in people all the time. I could give you stories upon story about where I found hope in people. Search somebody that's maybe done what you're dealing with or going through what you're going through. Do some research, ask questions. I mean, find out, start there.
Yeah.
Find out something that can be done. You might already know, hey, listen, well, I'm going to have to do this. Instead of laying in bed till 10 o'clock every morning, I'm going to have to get up at 6. Okay, well, if you already know that and you choose not to get up to do that, then that's on you.
Right.
Okay? That's where the regret comes later down in life. Don't live with that. Get up at 6.
Yeah.
Go do what you need to do. Get that 4 hours where you're laying in bed and go get something done.
Yeah.
Go dig yourself out or make something that you have to do to make yourself better or get to where you've got to go. That's your responsibility. That is your 100% responsibility. It's nobody else's
Oh no,
but yours.
absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
part of every aspect with that aspect. I had severe depression when my career ended. The trauma that I had sustained, being in intensive care, I mean, having to learn again. I had a reading disorder when I was a kid, and that ironically was an area of big struggle for me. And I had to learn how to do that. See, I know what it's like to sit on a couch. I know exactly what it's like to point fingers, cast blame, and make excuse for where you are. I'm sitting on a couch in the middle of a football season. I'm just retired, and I'm watching people do my job. I've
Yeah.
been doing that for 22 years, and I have nothing. I have zero future. I can't give you one thing that I'm going to be able to go do, or even though I'd worked some things in the off season, but it was the worst timing because at the end of the season is different. It's over, and you have 6 months before it comes back to play. Well, now it's in the
Right.
middle of the season, and I'm watching. So it couldn't have been a worse state. I understand that state. I understand that thought process because I was there. But it wasn't until laying on a couch in one of the darkest days I've ever had, and I realized, wait a minute, there was a spark. It was like, you have responsibility. Get your butt up. Return a call or make a call. And that find a way, really, those words again, like they do something to me. They
Right.
inspire that thing that everybody has to do. Then it inspired action. But it wasn't until I realized I'm responsible here. I got
Yep.
to do something. And then it's funny how, like, yeah, I mean, not funny, the irony of it. Then all of a sudden I
Hmm.
return a call. I make a call. All of a sudden I've been working on broadcasting, for like almost 10 years I was in the NFL. I get a call from Lynn Swan to meet him and the crew, Keith Jackson and Greasy were the main college crew in Champaign, Illinois. I was with the Bears at the time, so I had somebody drive me down. And I spent 2 days with him and their crew to learn about broadcasting from that aspect and meeting different people. So once I realized I'm responsible and I had to start doing something, is when things changed. If I'm laying on that couch, I never got off that couch, Kat, I don't know. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but it ain't good.
Right. Right.
It's just
Right.
not good.
Yeah. No, this is awesome and it's excellent, Merrill. And I love the information that you have shared with us. And I want people to connect with you. How can people connect with you?
Well, they can always go to my website. My website is really open to, people comment and, getting a hold of me if they want. And it's just
Yep.
merrillhoge.com. And that's MERRILHOGE.com. I have to spell it because both my names are spelled differently than Merrill Lynch has 2 L's. I have
Yep.
one.
Yep.
It's Hodge, pronounced like Dodge, but no
Yep.
D in it. So
Yep. Yep.
I have to
No,
help people through that,
that's awesome.
and they
No.
can. And I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I love doing that. I think there's just great connections there and business stuff that really help.
Yep.
People in all facets, including myself, with it. So.
Yeah, and what kind of communities are you typically speaking to? Are you at corporate events? Who's typically getting you to speak?
A majority of my events are corporate
Okay.
events, but I do a lot of fundraising stuff.
Yeah.
Around cancer and open heart
Yep.
American Heart Association, cancer, Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So, and I'm passionate about sports and the mental health, the physical and emotional space and head trauma. I
Yep.
think that has gotten that's a really messy world, and it's very confusing, and mostly because people don't understand it, and anything that you don't understand is confusing. But when you understand it, it's very simple and understandable. But there's a difference between physical and emotional, and actually, there's more emotional trauma in our country and the things we're dealing with now than physical trauma.
Yeah.
But the great thing about it is there's a great, amazing care. Just the things that can be done and help people is amazing, and that gets neglected and gets ignored, and it's this doom and gloom. And I'm trying to help fight through that doom and gloom because there is so much hope and there is so much help in that area, and
Yep.
it has got grotesquely overlooked by the media perspective and how they have presented it. And you got to be careful when you hear stuff in the media about that. You got to you got to be skeptical enough to do some research and do your own digging to find out what the real facts and understandings are. But hopefully it'll direct you towards the care and the care that's out there, the treatments that are out there, and the availability for all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know that you have a big part in the whole head injury prevention initiatives that are in place. So, and that's fantastic. So, if anybody's tuning in and they're part of that, I'm sure that they can connect with you in regards to that as well. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for joining me. It was great learning more about your story.
My pleasure.
And find a way, which is, like I said, fantastic and again beneficial to anybody. And I hope that a few of anybody who's tuned in checks you out, maybe reaches out to you, and maybe there's some opportunities for speaking, which would be fantastic.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me be on your platform, and good luck to you and everything that you continue to do for people. Thanks for your help.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to Stand Out and Grow. I hope that you took away a lot of great information, and I hope that this was very enjoyable to you as well in regards to learning more about Merril and what he's doing and all the great things that he has overcome and with the adversity. And it's just a powerful story. And if you go to his website, you'll listen to some of his speaking, and he's just really, really good at it. So hopefully you will connect to him. As I wrap this up and end this, as I always say, you got this. And until next time, tune in every Monday for my live podcast. And next week, I'll have another guest. And I can't think of her name right now. But if you stay connected with me on social media, you'll find out who that is. Thank you again so much. And until next time, I'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.